The NBA trade deadline is inching closer and closer. So we're going to be looking at some potential trade candidates and looking at a specific team that has multiple trade candidates that could be going for a shakeup, with possibly one of those candidates not even being looked at by opposing teams. As you guys can tell by the title, as you guys can tell by the thumbnail, the team that we're going to be diving in and discussing is the Chicago Bulls. But on recent reports from Brian Windhorst and Evan Cedery, says that there remains no interest in any team trading for Zach LaVine amidst a career best efficiency season. So we're going to be looking at LaVine's season this year and ultimately what's holding him back from getting moved, while also looking at some other moves the Bulls can make as well. So that was a lot to kind of go over in the introduction. So let's kind of look at this Bulls team as a whole. Like I said, the Bulls this season are a little bit of the middle of the pack. They are under 500 at 10 and 15, 11 games back in the Eastern Conference, and are tied for last in the Central Division. And the Bulls do have a roster competing with some players that are playing to their best abilities. Like we mentioned, Zach LaVine is having a career high efficiency season on the offensive side and hasn't been dealing with those injuries. Nikola Vucevic is having his best season as well on the offensive side, being a fantastic big man for this team. And there are also some notable names as well on this team that could be some veteran guys that could help out being some contributing role players, guys like Torrey Craig and Javon Carter. But the Bulls, unfortunately, just haven't been able, like I said, to showcase this. And we kind of known with the Bulls that ever since DeMar DeRozan has left that this offseason, that some change-ups were going to be happening with their roster. And we didn't know necessarily if it was going to be in this calendar year or going into next year, but it's looking more evident that the Bulls need a shakeup. They need to change things, and that these trades are going to be necessary for their development of some of their younger players, specifically their rookie and Matas Buzelis, who has been pretty solid this year, young guys in Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, and giving Josh Giddey that full length of being able to play point guard. So I do believe that the Bulls need to go out here and make some moves to help out their roster. And we're going to look at some of those potential guys that could be moved and help out the Bulls, but also help out said teams that are contending. So first player to discuss, so we can just rip the Band-Aid right off, is Zach LaVine. And like we mentioned, even Evan Cedery is saying that, and Brad Windhorst is saying that with Zach LaVine's career best efficiency season, a lot of teams are not interested in trading him. And the reason being that is his contract is at $40 million, and it goes up and up. And for a player that is consistent on the offensive side of the ball, not the greatest defender, needs a team that is a good defensive team around him with cap space as well, and wants to be on a winning-esque type of roster, is a lot to ask for a specific player as well in Zach LaVine, who on a championship squad is going to be your third best player as well. So for the Bulls, the asking price for a team that is even willing to accept Zach LaVine is hard, but then finding out some tradable assets that they are willing to take back that equal out that value for the Bulls also is some difficulty. Now, the Bulls have obviously said to be trying to trade Zach LaVine, and it has been difficult, but I think that there's still a possibility that LaVine does get moved if the right option does come forth, and that is if one of these good defensive teams that's kind of near the bottom kind of showcases their skills. And one team that was rumored last year that I still think can make a pounce on Zach LaVine is the Detroit Pistons. He would fit in perfectly alongside a player in Cade Cunningham, and obviously the Pistons have enough contracts to match and enough young pieces. It'd be just, will they be willing to write off a player in Isaiah Stewart for the Bulls to be able to add as a potential backup centerpiece or to use in future trades down the line? Stewart would be a big that the Pistons would have to move off of, but adding some needed offensive scoring in Zach LaVine could take this team over the top, and they do have some of the scoring pieces in Malik Beasley that they could utilize at the trade deadline to then ultimately get another big man to help them out. I think another team that also makes sense for Zach LaVine is the Los Angeles Lakers. They've been rumored for Zach LaVine for a while now, and I think that if they instantly pull the trigger to help LeBron get a better team alongside Anthony Davis, Zach LaVine could be one of those guys that could help out offensively. I think that this team defensively as well would obviously need some help, but Zach LaVine could help out this team in general. It's just ultimately, will the Bulls be willing to take back the package that the Lakers are willing to give up? if it's the only package available, if the Lakers are the only team willing to accept a trade, then I see it happening. I don't really see any other teams happening. I know the Grizzlies, or not the Grizzlies, the Kings and the Heat have been rumored in the past, but I think the Kings have some needed defensive issues, and Zach LaVine does not solve that. And the Miami Heat have obviously kind of signaled that they might want to move off of Jimmy Butler, and if they were moving off of Tyler Hero, then maybe pursuing a player in Zach LaVine could be that move. But if you're moving off a player in Jimmy Butler, I don't see adding a player in Zach LaVine to be that necessary domino that will add to that team. So realistically, the true trade targets that I see for Zach LaVine, if it makes sense, are the Lakers and the Pistons. I think the Pistons make the most sense, and ultimately, I think we'll see the trade go down this season if the Pistons do start to rise through these rankings, getting up to February, clearly stating that they could, if they add another star, they could be a key impact destination and could be a surprising team. If that's not the case, then I could see them obviously trying to do this trade next year. Now, a player that is a little bit easier to trade for the Chicago Bulls is Nikola Vucevic. As Nikola Vucevic on this team makes $20 million and has been a quality big man for the Bulls. Like I mentioned, he's notoriously been known to be a double-double machine and is keeping up that as he is getting older now. Vucevic, in his days right now, is looking like a top-tier center, but I truly think it is due to the fact that obviously the Bulls are requiring him to do a lot, and he is a big focal point for this Bulls team. I think if he's added to a contender, he's still going to be a valuable asset for that said team, but I don't think he's going to be putting up the numbers that he's putting up on Chicago, obviously. I still think he could be a quality fourth best player on a championship team if the team is looking to add that, or if a team is looking to add some big man help. And I know multiple teams around the league are looking to address that big man, and I think that Vucevic could be a quality starting one that some teams could go after. The Lakers, they failed to get a trade with Zach LaVine, or if the Pistons do swoop in and steal him, they could be looking at Vucevic as maybe a lower tier acquisition, as he makes less money, could be a easier trade, and they desperately need that size and rebounding. The Warriors are another team as well, where I've mentioned in the past that I think Vucevic could be a very solid upgrade for at the center position, as they have lacked that with Kevon Looney this year, and I do believe that the Bulls would take some tradable contracts back for Vucevic. They're not necessarily going to pry a young player from this team necessarily. If there is a young player thrown in, maybe not be Jonathan Kuminga, it might be Moses Moody or something like that. But if not, then obviously taking back some other contracts and picks for a player in Vucevic is fine. Other teams have been said to be interested in Nikola Vucevic. I know that the Pelicans kind of need a center. I know that the Grizzlies could be exploring the center market, or were exploring the center market in the past. I don't necessarily know how plausible it is for them to do trades to acquire Vucevic. Therefore, I think the Lakers and the Warriors are, some better candidates, but I do think both of those teams could present themselves as Vucevic suitors. Next, we're going to talk about a player that could be traded from the Bulls and has been rumored to be in Bulls trade rumors, and that's Lonzo Ball. And if it makes sense for the Bulls to want to trade Lonzo Ball, he's 27, he's making $20 million, he's on the last year of his contract, he just came back healthy, and if he can provide himself to be a solid productional piece and be able to consistently stay healthy, he could be a consistent backup point guard or starting point guard for many teams around the league. And I think that the Bulls should be looking to move off of Lonzo Ball, as he is getting a little bit older, is exceeding their obviously timetable, and if they look to move off LaVine, if they look to move off Vucevic, ripping that band-aid off from this experiment with the Bulls, with DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball, bringing them in, should be washed away. And I think that there are multiple teams that could be interested in Lonzo Ball, specifically teams that are looking to kind of learn from his growth. And I think two teams specifically in the Miami Heat, and I think the Memphis Grizzlies should keep an eye on Lonzo Ball. These are teams that have shown to be able to develop players and have guys be able to come to their team and work through the mud and find themselves bigger roles. We've seen with the Grizzlies, all these two-way guys through last season and this season be able to work their way up through the roster. The Heat, obviously with their Heat culture, obviously embracing a lot of two-way guys and younger guys, working up to these standard contracts and filling in and taking big roles was successful. And I think if Lonzo is put in a situation similar to like one of those situations, or one very similar to that, he could be a thriving piece off the bench. It could rework himself to earning a long-term extension with a team, or even securing himself a new contract with a team that is willing to give him that money as a playmaker and three-point shooter. We've yet to really see, obviously this season, there's been some limitations with his injury. He came back late into the season. He dealt with another injury as well throughout the year, but I truly think that if Lonzo Ball can consistently play a decent backup role for a team, he could find himself working on a rehabilitation contract with a squad, working himself to a potential role with that team, which could be a very impactful one if he gets back to at least some percent of Lonzo Ball. Now, with these next two contracts, they are some smaller ones, and these guys would be guys that would help out fill some back ends of rosters. But like I mentioned, if the Bulls are going on this fire sale, if they're looking to sell guys like LaVine, Ball, and Vucevic, possibly even Patrick Williams as well, might as well get rid of some of those older veteran guys. And I think a guy in Javon Carter is one of those perfect trade candidates. Carter, obviously a Chicago native, wanted to sign with Chicago to help them compete, but obviously Chicago is turning that stone. And if Chicago does do that, Carter at his $6 million contract is a very tradable contract and a very valuable backup point guard to bring on for some of these teams. He's a good defender. He's a good playmaker. He can set up that second unit for some teams and for some squads that are either having a young backup point guard or necessarily don't truly have a true backup point guard, could go after Carter for some second round picks, not even having to trade any main contract away to pry away from him. And I think Carter can make an impact on one of those teams. Similarly, alongside Carter, I think a player as well, which we do not have here, I guess because I accidentally did not get to put him into the video. Sorry. But that player I am going to still go over, and that player is Torrey Craig. Now, Torrey Craig makes around $2 million for this Bulls team, and we've seen his name mentioned with a lot of guys, and I think Craig is probably the first one to go. Like I said, is 30 in his 30s, is a solid, serviceable 3-and-D wing, and could be a 7th, 8th, 9th man on a championship contender. Why is he going to be on the Bulls? Why is he going to be on a team that is not going nowhere, especially if they're selling at the deadline? Look to move up a player in Craig. I can see a team like the Bucks who have been interested in him, from Marjon Beauchamp getting interested. I've heard the Celtics have been interested in him with possibly Jaden Springer. That's another trade. He is a little bit of a smaller contract, so it is a little bit easier, but I would expect a guy like Torrey Craig maybe even to go to the Denver Nuggets. There are some multiple options for a player like Torrey Craig to be able to be moved, and I do think some teams that are at the top that are looking to add just a little extra piece like Torrey Craig could go out there and get him for the cheap, sending out some second round picks, sending out a filler contract or whatever. But let me know what you guys think ultimately down below in the comment section. What do you guys think about the Chicago Bulls? Do you guys think they should sell? Do you guys think they should hold out? What are your ultimate thoughts? I personally think, like I said, they should go into this fire sale. I think regardless if you can trade Zach LaVine, try to move him. If you can't move him this year, look to move him next season. Move off Vucevic, move off Ball, move off Javon Carter, move off Torrey Craig. Go into this reset, into this rebuild. Allow Josh Giddey to play that point guard alongside Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu to develop. Have Veliz kind of growing in. See what you got with Jalen Smith. See, evaluate Patrick Williams, and ultimately find the direction for this Bulls team. Take a little bit of a step back, but ultimately hope in their future of taking that step forward. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. You guys have been absolutely fantastic at showing your love and support, which is really appreciative on the revival of this channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.